Okay, hello everybody. Nice to see you. Just for the people who don't know me yet, my name is Julie. I'm an Ayurvedic therapist, a massage therapist, also a health counselor, diet, lifestyle, and yoga teacher. So today I'm going to talk about the basic principles of Ayurveda. What is the main philosophy of Ayurveda? And I'm going to talk about what the idea is, what is Vata, Pitta, Kapha, because these are terms that are widely used in Ayurveda, but what does that actually mean? I'm also going to talk about toxins and the digestive fire, and what all of this means a bit in Ayurveda. So I'm just going to share this PowerPoint presentation. Yes. Okay. All right. So basic principles of Ayurveda. Okay. Here you can see the god of Ayurveda, Dhanvantari. And he brings all kind of tools with him. The pot of Amrita, which is the pot of juice of immortality. He also has the scriptures of the Ayurveda, where the old Ayurvedic texts are written on. He also has a shell. And sometimes he's also represented with some plants, with medicinal plants, and sometimes he's also represented with a leech, the blood-sucking animals, because they also use that in some therapies in Ayurveda. Just a little side note of that. So first of all, what is Ayurveda? The name Ayurveda means Ayur in Sanskrit, means life, and Veda means science or knowledge. So it's actually the science or knowledge of life. And it really is a science. It's not a science as we know it, like we in the West, we have our science, which is based on numbers and measurements. And if you cannot measure something, it doesn't exist. But in Ayurveda, it's an other science. It works with other principles, which are, for example, the elements and the properties, Doshas, Agni, Ama, all these things. It is a traditional Indian medicine. So it's also a philosophy, also a lifestyle, a diet, but mostly it's actually a medicine, a bit like the traditional, like the Chinese medicine. They have the same roots. So the basic principles are actually the main philosophies. They start with the 5 elements and their properties. I will explain you what these elements are. And then, like I said, what is Vata, Pitta, Kapha? They are called Doshas. They also talk about Agni. Agni is our metabolism or our digestive fire. And then Ama, which means toxins. And how does Ayurveda work? Well, it works with diet, with lifestyle, with herbal remedies, and with manual treatments like massage and all kind of oil treatments. So the first principle, the 5 elements, what does it actually mean? Because you have different elements in Ayurveda. They have 5 of them. They are earth, water, fire, air, and ether. But what does it actually mean? It's you can say, okay, earth, but what does earth mean? What does fire mean? So they look actually at it's quite universal, and they say that earth is actually the mass of things, the gross mass, something that has weight. And I say it's universal because you can apply this basic energy of mass to everything in this universe. Everything has a specific mass or has some kind of weight. The smallest atom as well has some gross matter. And then water, you can see it as a force of cohesion. And everything in this universe has some force of cohesion, like the atoms as well. There's the protons and the electrons, which are attracted to each other. There's gravity. Water drops, they also always want to connect to each other. So that's actually the force of cohesion. And then you have fire. Fire is actually the force or the energy of radiation. And everything in this universe also radiates something like heat or energy. Even the smallest atom has some energy, has some radiation. Then air is actually the energy of movement. Everything in this universe is moving. There's nothing that is completely still. So even in the smallest atom, they're very active. The atoms and molecules to form molecules and to form chemical reactions. So there's always a lot of action, a lot of movement, a lot of this air energy. And then ether, what is ether? Ether is actually the space that contains all of the matter. It's actually, you can say, the nothingness, or just the space where everything is in. And also even in an atom, there's actually a lot of space. The protons, like the protons and the neutrons are like quite far away from the electron. So in between there's space. And this is actually this kind of energy. Then you can also look at the properties of these elements. And they say that, I mean, you can just for this really use your intuition and look at nature. So you see Earth, okay, the gross mass, but like if you look at Earth as we know it, it is heavy, it's hard, it's rough, it's stable, solid, and gross. Then you have water, which is heavy as well, but it's a little bit more moving. It's not as stable. It's more liquid. It's oily. It's cold, slimy, stable, but a little bit more fluid, and soft. And then you have fire. Fire is the only one that is hot of all the elements. It's sharp. Fire can really cut through things. It's sharp, like a knife. It's very subtle, so it can pass through small things, and it's dry. Fire dries out. Then we have air, which is dry as well, light, cold, clear, rough, subtle, and active. So air, the movement again is activity. If you look at like a landscape where there's a lot of air passing by, like it's very rough, it's very dry, wind is cold. If wind passes, it's cold. So you can understand it a bit like this. And of course, active. And then ether, what are the energies or the properties of ether? Ether is soft, is light, is subtle. Subtle, it goes through everything because it is just in everything. It's also cold and it's clear. So these are the more the touchable properties of these elements. And then actually Ayurveda works with this, but to make it a little bit more easy to work with, they actually combine these elements. And they combine it into doshas. And doshas, you might have heard about it, are the Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Doshas actually means imbalances, but that's maybe something for another webinar, just as a little detail. But just to explain what are these Kapha, Pitta, and Vata. So Kapha is actually the combination of this earth and water. You can say like mud. So the combination of earth and water with all the properties that we've explained earlier, Kapha is going to be everything in this universe which is oily, cold, heavy, dull, smooth, slimy, and stable. So everything in this universe which has this property has a Kapha energy. And then I will explain you with more examples later, but just so that you have an idea. Pitta, what is Pitta? Pitta is actually the combination of fire and a little bit of water. And the water is actually needed because if Pitta is actually the cooking process. And if there would only be fire, you would burn. So only fire just burns things, dries things out and burns it. But for the cooking process, and we go into that a little bit later as well, you need a little bit of water as well. Like if you cook on your, if you cook a meal, if you only would put heat, you need a little bit of water to boil, to cook things. So Pitta, what is Pitta? Pitta in this universe is everything which is a little bit oily because of the water element. It is hot, sharp, it cuts through things again. It's light, it's flowing because of the water, and it's liquid, can be liquid. And then last one, Vata. What is Vata? So Vata is the combination of air and ether. And then this combination is just very light. It's dry, cold, rough, subtle, and very active. And you can see it a little bit like on a scale as well. So Kapha is actually, I could have put it the other way around. So Vata first, and then Pitta, and then Kapha the lowest, because Kapha is the most stable, the closest to the ground, I would say, the more mass. Kapha is actually more, more mass, more matter, more material. Pitta is a little bit less matter. The fire and the water is a little bit less matter. There's a little bit less density in it. So it's a little bit more moving and a little bit more flowing. And then Vata, the air and ether, is actually very light. There's actually not a lot of matter actually in it anymore. Like in ether, there's not even matter in it. And air, there's also not a lot of matter. So because there's not a lot of matter, not a lot of material in it, it's very moving. It's very, very active. Whereas Kapha, which is earth and water, okay, water has a flowing element, but it's quite stable. Like mud is really like stable mass. Fire stays at the, is a little bit, cooking is a little bit more moving. And then Vata is just moving everywhere. So that's a little bit how you can see it. If you look at, now Ayurveda looks at these, like I said, like to these doshas, through these classes, they look at everything in this universe. But to make it practical, and to work with it as a medicine to heal, we have to look at what does that mean in our body. So in our body, these are actually the main functions of the body. So Kapha is actually, like I said, more mass. It's the earth and the water element. It's more mass, more body, more matter. So what happens when there is more matter in our body? It is actually the growth and repair. So everything that grows in our body or repairs, like in our sleep, is actually a Kapha energy in our body, a Kapha function. And then Pitta is everything that is transformation and our metabolism. So the fire and the water, the cooking process, is actually everything that is metabolism. And you can see, okay, metabolism, what does that mean? It is actually, you can say, your digestive fire, not only in your digestive system, but also the metabolism in every little cell. Because every little cell has also, there's a lot of transformation going on, a lot of energies, and there's a lot of, how do you say, chemical reactions and everything going on. So all of that, like, is actually our Pitta, is actually our metabolism. And then we have then also we have Vata. And what is Vata? Vata is actually, no, one more thing about the Pitta. The Pitta, how can you see Pitta in our body? So Pitta is actually, you can say all the enzymes, for example, all the enzymes and all the hormones and the neurotransmitters, the things that are the chemical reactions in our body. This is a transformation because they transform. Everything, Pitta, it has the fire element, and everything that goes through fire transforms into ashes, or if you have our metabolism, or for example, a digestive fire, this or food is transformed through our digestive fire to our body or through waste. So this is actually the transformation that I talk about. And all enzymes do this. Like the enzymes, we have a lot of Pitta, a lot of transformation in the digestive fire because there's a lot of enzymes in there, but also all our hormones and also mentally, there's also transformation. So this is all what Pitta is. And then Kapha, the growth and repair, of course, like if you have a wound, of when you're sleeping, when you're resting, this is all like, growing more. And then at the end, you have Vata as well. This is the third and last function that our body actually has. So Vata is actually the movement and the knowledge. And knowledge, what do we mean with knowledge? Knowledge is actually more the sensory stimulus. So, for example, everything we experience with our senses, all the stimulus, the stimulus with our senses, and all the movements in our body. Can be movement like I'm moving my hands, I'm moving my arms, I'm moving around, but it can also be the movements inside the body or the mental movement even. And there's a lot of different movements in our body. We can say in Ayurveda, they have specific names as well, the types of Vata, but there's a movement which go like circular in our body, which can be related to our bloodstream. There's a movement which goes down, which is a detoxing movement, which helps releasing stool, urine, a baby, like giving birth, menstruational fluid. There's also upward moving energies, which are, for example, burping, speaking, a lot of thoughts. So you have a lot of different directions of movements in our bodies. And this is all Vata. And they are very related to our nervous system. Because knowledge, sensory stimulus and movement, there's also always has to be a stimulus before we move, or because there is a stimulus, we do something. So they're very close connected to each other, the movement and the sensory stimulus. So a very Vata organ in our body is like, for example, our nervous system, because it senses all these sensory stimulus and these movements. And actually Vata, like you can say, is actually the transportation of things. It's transportation of blood, of waste, of air, even everything that has to move from one place to another. That's actually the Vata function in our body. So what happens when these things are in disbalance? So imagine there's a lot of Kapha, a lot of growth and repair, too much repair, too much growth. We have like too much of mass, too much body mass in our bodies. What happens then? We get accumulation. There's accumulation. There's too much. We get like intoxicated, you could say, or we just have too much of things. And you can see that in specific diseases. There's some diseases which are very Kapha in nature, like, for example, obesity, cholesterol, high cholesterol, diabetes, or can be also just like heaviness in general. If you feel heavy, if you feel sluggish, if you feel a bit lazy in your mind, dull, no energy, not because of exhaustion, but more like lack of motivation. So all of these things, cancers can be as well. I mean, there's different kind of cancers, but mostly like the accumulation tumors, they mostly are Kapha as well. So everything that is like just too much in our body that we need to detox afterwards. Pitta, what does Pitta mean in our body? Pitta is actually, so if there will be too much cooking going on, if there will be too much transformation, too much heat and too much cooking, too much, how did I say it? Transformation, yeah, if there will be too much of that, then you will create irritation and inflammation. So inflammation in our body, this is actually, you have practically almost everything in our body can get inflamed. So what are all these diseases? It's all the diseases which end with itis, like for example, gastritis, arthritis, tendinitis, dermatitis, all these diseases which end with itis, this is inflammation, and there's just too much metabolic too much metabolism going on, too much cooking going on. Can also be fever. Fever is just like a lot of heat. And then mentally, you can also just say like irritation, frustration, anger. All of these things are like a sign of a lot of Pitta in the system. And then at the end, you have also Vata diseases. If you have too much Vata in your body. And what happens if you have too much Vata? If there was too much movement, if you have just moved too much, like a part of your body or even your whole body, what happens? There is degeneration. So that part of your body will actually degenerate because you're moving it too much. It's actually the opposite of accumulation, is the opposite of Kapha, which is growth and repair. But if you move too much, it will degenerate. It will lose its matter. It will lose its mass, and then you have more Vata. And then what happens in the body? What are like diseases of degeneration, or how can you see degeneration? It's like everything that is exhaustion because of too much movement, tiredness. You can also see it's like wrinkles, for example. It's degeneration of the skin. So the skin becomes more dry, rough, like all these properties that we've seen before. Gray hair as well, cavities in the teeth. So the teeth are degenerating. Neurological disorders like Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, all these diseases are like Vata degeneration. Like you can see Parkinson's, even people just move, and that's like properly Vata because there's degeneration and there's a lot of movement. Memory loss and getting old quickly. Getting old, we all degenerate, we all deteriorate. So there's also phases in our lives. So in the beginning of our lives, when we are a kid, we accumulate more. We have more Kapha. We accumulate body mass because we grow. We accumulate our immunity. We accumulate knowledge, which is our mental accumulation, or mental Kapha as well. And then in the middle of our lives, we have more a Pitta stage of our lives, where we have to perform, transform, metabolize life, actually, you could say. We have to do something in life and do something with it, transform it. And then at the end of our lives, we have more, we've used our body. So there will be, because of all of these movements, all of that moving, we've used it, and there's more degeneration. So aging and degeneration and Vata is actually very natural to happen. But if you have like a Vata aggravation, it means that you're actually aging too quickly. So that's actually what it means. And then also mentally, what does Vata disbalance mean in the body and in the mind? It's more like anxiety, worrying, panic attacks can be that as well. A lot of thoughts in the mind, insomnia. All these things are Vata disorders. And like I said, there's always, I didn't say it before, there's always the mental parts and the physical parts of diseases, and they are just there's in Ayurveda we don't separate mind and body, or emotions, mind and body. We don't separate them. It's a holistic medicine. So it's very, it's all interrelated. And you can actually, if you have a Vata aggravation and your body is degenerating, so your house where you live in is actually breaking down, of course you're going to feel anxious, you're going to worry, you're going to have insomnia. So it's it all. And if you have too much accumulation, if you have too much tiredness, you don't do anything, you just sit there the whole day and there's like just accumulate and eat a lot, and then of course you're going to get heavy, not only your body, but if your body is heavy, you're going to also feel heavy in the mind. So that's actually what Kapha in the mind then is. And then Pitta, of course, when there's a lot of inflammation, there's a lot of fire, there's also a lot of fiery emotions, like irritation is very sharp emotion. So there's no distinguishing between the mind and body, which is also very interesting. One more thing about this Pitta, because you can have a Kapha or a Vata imbalance, or you can have too much of something, or you can have not enough of something. But then what does Pitta actually do in our body? So Pitta doesn't really, there's no inflammation without a cause. There's not just a Pitta aggravation. When you have a Pitta aggravation, when you have inflammation, there's always a cause before that. So it's also always because there was an accumulation or there was a degeneration. When there's, for example, too many toxins in the body or too high cholesterol, then the body wants to attack it. And then you get, how does the body attack something? But with cooking it, with the Pitta energy. So if there's too much of something, the body will want to burn it. And that's why you have like diseases, for example, rheumatoid arthritis or any autoimmune disease, where there's just an accumulation of toxins in a specific part of the body, and then the body wants to cook it, wants to boil it, wants to cook these toxins, and then you create an inflammation, accumulation plus inflammation. If you have, for example, then more arthrosis, which is more a Vata thing, because arthrosis is degeneration, and then can also, when you move constantly this wrist, for example, and then throughout the years you can have arthrosis because you've just used it too much, and because of that arthrosis as well, if the joint is like cracking, and if everything is not lubricated anymore, then you can create inflammation as well. So Pitta, the inflammation, has always a root cause. But that's maybe as well for another to go more in depth into that, another webinar. So like I said before, they see in Ayurveda, they actually see everything in this universe through these eyes, Vata, Pitta, Kapha. They can see people. I'm going to talk about this a bit later. So they can see people, like I said, the body, the mind, the metabolism. Specific body types, you would say, oh, this is a very Kapha person, or this is a very Vata person. The mind as well, how somebody reacts, how somebody acts, how somebody speaks. You can say, oh, that's very Vata, Pitta, or Kapha. Not like that we want to put people in boxes, but it's just an easy way to work with, to diagnose, and to heal as well, and to know what kind of person you are, and then you know also where maybe your disbalances will be and how these disbalances will be, and then you can actually avoid them or work with them. Then also you can look at, for example, the times in nature, and there's a circle there, and that is actually the specific times in nature when they also have a specific energy. Like, for example, early in the morning, there's more a Kapha energy. So Kapha is everything that is sluggish, stable, cold, damp. Like in the morning, you can see dewdrops on the plants. Everything is like still not really awake. There's not a lot of fire yet. Everything is a bit like sleepy, cold, wet, damp. So there's accumulation in the body as well. So you wake up with some mucus, like in your eyes. You don't feel very fresh. So that's very kapha. Energy in the morning, and then in the afternoon, like from 10 till 2, it depends where you are, of course, and the world and the season, but around that time in the middle of the day you have more a pitta energy. A pitta is sharp, is hot, is transformative. You will have more energy throughout that in that time. Your digestive fire will be higher as well. You will feel like having a bigger meal maybe, and you will be mentally more sharp as well. And then in the afternoon you will have more a vata energy. So you've used already your energy, you've used your body already, you've moved already throughout the whole day. So in the vata you're a little bit more tired. You're a bit degenerated, not really, but you're a bit more tired. You need to like do something a bit more lighter. You have a bit less energy. And then again in the evening you have again this kapha energy. Again, when the sun goes down, you feel a bit more tired, you're ready to bed, you feel heavier again. And then in the night, in the middle of the night, like 10 to 2, there's again this fire burning. And that's why some people, when they don't go to sleep before 10, and then afterwards they get a second boost again, they get awake again, and they can do a lot of things. Or students, they start studying at that time, which is not very healthy, but yeah, you should use that energy more for sleep and for deep transformative sleep. But you might have noticed that you can get very active around that time again. And then later in the morning, from 2 till the sun rise, there's again a vata energy, which is a very light energy. Vata is air and ether, so it's very light energy, very subtle. So if you would wake up in that time, it's very hard to fall asleep again, because for sleeping you need to fall asleep. You need to, you need some kapha, you need some heaviness, and there's no heaviness in that time. So you will start worrying, anxiety, you will start dramatizing life at that time. Panicking even maybe, and not falling asleep anymore, just be agitated. But that's also another whole story. But just to make you see a bit like how Ayurveda works. So there's also some different things that you should and shouldn't do. There's no rules in Ayurveda, there's just guidelines. But there's good things that you can and cannot do in different times of the day. Also different times of the year, of the season. And then they also look at food, of course, because food is our medicine. So they look at what foods have more vata properties, which have more pitta properties, which have more kapha properties. So if you would have a lot of kapha, a lot of accumulation in your body, you will have to eat to balance it out. You will have to eat more foods that have more vata properties. So if you have a lot of accumulation of body mass, of toxins, then you will need some vata foods. And vata foods, you can say, are, for example, vegetables, light food, like with all the properties that we had before. What is vata? Vata is light, is cold, is dry, is rough. So a bit more with these properties. If then on the other side, and on the hand as well, if you have too much vata, too much degeneration, what do you need? You need more kapha. And kapha foods, which are more heavy, more oily, is, for example, milk products, or ghee, which is, or butter or ghee, which are more heavy in nature, and oils to smear. The vata is dry and rough, so to lubricate the vata again. So, and if you have too much pitta, for example, you want more cooling things, because there's too much metabolism, too much cooking, you need things much more cooling. So this is how Ayurveda actually works. It works with balancing out. And then, of course, medicinal herbs. Herbs have more have a little bit stronger effects. And specifically in Ayurveda, they mix a lot of herbs together. So herbs with specific properties, they mix together, so the effect is even stronger. Again, yeah, anti-Vata, Pitta, or anti-Kapha. They also look at diseases, like I told you before. For example, obesity is more Kapha, rheumatoid arthritis. Well, no, that's not a good example, but arthrosis is more Vata. And they also look at stages of disease. For example, every disease has also different stages. For example, a common cold starts with Vata, a Vata stage, because you've exhausted yourself. You've been exposed to too much wind, to too much movement in your body, and your immunity is weak, so you get a bit weaker. And then when you get weaker and you get a common cold, and then you have a Pitta stage, which is more your body tries to cook some bacteria you've taken in, and your body actually can be like in fever, for example, or there's a cooking phase of a disease, which is the Pitta stage. And then at the end you can also go into a Kapha stage. Kapha stage, when there's more accumulation, there's more mucus in the body. So at the end of a cold, usually you get like this really thick, slimy mucus, which is hard to get out. So that's like different stages of a disease, and every disease has different stages. Then you can also look at, which is very fun, look at animals, for example. Some animals are very Vata in nature. For example, a squirrel or a mouse or a goat even, or some dogs. They are very Vata in nature. So Vata is everything that is, they're very like small. There's a lot of movement, and there's not a lot of body mass. So they're very small, very thin. There's not a lot of mass, and there's a lot of movement. So if you look at a squirrel, they mostly like moving around here and there, or a little bird as well, for example. Like, let's take a little bird. They just move around from branch to branch, and they're not very stable. They're very active. They move their heads all the time, and they're very thin and very small and very light animals. If you look at a Pitta kind of animal, that would be like more a cat or a tiger. These animals, like Pitta, has a lot more muscles and muscle mass, because muscles are a very fiery, a very hot, fiery organ. So they have more muscles, more athletically built, and they also are mentally like quite sharp. Like there's not like they don't move like a bird from here and there and actually everywhere and nowhere. They are very precise. They will see, like, for example, a mouse, and they will observe that mouse, and they will have that mouse. They're very like, this is very Pitta. Pitta is very goal orientated. They're very sharp, and they have a specific goal, and they're not gonna fly around like little birds. They use their energy. They have a lot of energy, but they can burn out pretty quickly as well. So they use it all in once, concentrated focus, and then they can relax again. If you look at Kapha animals, for example, is more like, the animals who have more body mass, because Kapha is more mass. For example, a cow or a hippo or an elephant. So these are animals, they have more body mass, they're a little bit more slower, more stable, also mentally more stable. You're not like a cat. You can irritate a cat quite quickly. Cat has a lot of fire, so a lot of irritation. So your cat doesn't need a lot to be irritated, or to scratch you or bite you. But a cow, you cannot make a cow angry very easily. They're very, very gentle, very all fine, So they're very, this is also a part of Kapha, very soft souls. And then you can just diagnose everything with this Vata, Pitta, Kapha. For example, people, we like I said before, we don't want to put people in boxes, but it is very easy to work with. It's just it's just a system how to work with. And you have basic constitutions. And what is a constitution? It is actually the amount of elements that you are born with. So everybody from conception actually onwards it is decided, it's actually the egg and the sperm, it is already like this inside specific dosage of how much air, water, earth, ether there is inside of that. So as from the conception onwards, we have a specific percentage of these elements, and so also a different percentage of these doshas of Vata, Pitta, Kapha. And then you actually have this constitution throughout your whole life because you're born with it. And this is your natural state. This is actually how your perfect health, how you are actually the most, like you can also always say like, what is perfect health according to Ayurveda? Perfect health is just very, very personal, because perfect health for me can be something completely different than for somebody else, because I just have different balance of elements in my body than somebody else. I just have more Vata and Pitta in my body than somebody with Kapha. So for me, what is healthy is going to be like food as well. It's going to be different. I will need other foods and other lifestyle and other habits than a person, for example, which has a lot of Kapha. So that will be, we will have a different health, and we will have different things that make us healthy or make us sick. For example, for me, some things will be very healthy, but for the other person, not. So Ayurveda really is very, very personal, and they look at of course, you need some kind of system. So that's why we have this Vata, Pitta, Kapha, to make it a little bit more simple. So which constitution do we have in Ayurveda? We have Vata constitutions, which are, well, you can say purely Vata. Nobody is purely only ether and air, because we all our bodies are made of also earth, water, and fire. So we always have all 5 of the elements in us. If not, we wouldn't exist in this world, or we would just be fire, for example, or we just would be air. So but there's people who have like a high dosage of Vata, a high dosage of ether and air in their bodies, and then we call them the Vata people. And then we have also Pitta people, Kapha people. And there's combinations as well, of course, which makes it more easy, more difficult, but also more fun. So you have Vata Pitta people. Also, you can have Pitta Vata people, which have more Pitta and less Vata. Then you have Pitta Kapha people or Kapha Pitta people, Vata Kapha people. And then you also can have a combination of all 3, Vata Pitta Kapha, which have the all 5 elements quite equally balanced. And actually they don't exist. Most of the people have like 2 doshas, Vata Pitta, Pitta Kapha, or Vata Kapha. And very like rarely you will have a pure Vata person or a pure Pitta person or a pure Kapha person. And very, very rarely you will have a very balanced person. This is actually rare. And actually, if you would be a very balanced person, it's a very healthy constitution, because it's not easy to get you out of balance. Pure one dosha constitutions are also quite easy to treat, because if you are a pure Vata person, you just know what you need. You need more heat, oil, rest, routine. You need more of these things in your life. You know what kind of diet is good for you, and you can follow that. But if you are a combination, a Vata Pitta person or a Pitta Kapha person, there's always going to be some kind of imbalance. Because if you want to treat your Vata because you have too much Vata, then your Pitta will aggravate. You know, if you have too much Vata, which is dry and cold, and then you will want to create more heat to heal that Vata, and then you will end up with too much Pitta. So there will always be some confusion in these people. And most of people, of course, are like that. So let's go just to the pure constitutions, because it's just fun. You will see, like, you can recognize a lot of parts of yourself in it, but you can also recognize like some friends or some family or some people you know. So first of all, the pure Vata constitution people, like I said, like they are like a little bird or a little squirrel or like a goat or something, like a skinny kind of active animal. So I say they're very skinny, they're bony, or they can be very tall and thin, or very small and thin. So they're bony. You can even really like see their muscles or their tendons or their bones or their veins through their skin. They have a cold and dry skin, usually like a rough skin. They always have to put on some oil, or their skin is always a little bit like dry. Dry and thin hair. So their hair will never be like big and lush, because that's just not in their constitution, and that's okay. So that they have like thinner hair, small teeth. I mean, there's less matter, there's less mass. So in general, all the tissues will be just a little bit like, a bit thinner, a bit less luxurious, as you would say. They have smaller eyes, smaller teeth, smaller joints as well. And then a very important thing is the metabolism. They also, in Ayurveda, this is actually one of the main things, is like to look at what metabolism does this person has. Their metabolism is irregular, because Vata is irregularity, movement, sometimes this, sometimes that. That's very Vata. So their metabolism is very irregular. They can have a good metabolism at one point, so they will have a perfect stool, for example, or they will digest their food very well. And then another time it will just be constipation, gas, bloating, and that's very typical for like just prone to they're actually very prone to constipation and gas and bloating because of the dryness. Vata is dry, so they will also the stool will get dry. So they will have to eat meals according to how their digestive fire is at the moment, and how, if they feel very hungry, they can eat like a bigger meal. But if they're not very hungry, then it's better to eat like a small meal, because they have to listen to their body very, like, a lot more, because sometimes they can digest it, sometimes they can't. And also, like everything else, mind and body are the same, are connected. So the mind is irregular and it's very fast. It goes from one place to another, like a little bird on a branch. It's like, oh, they just have these ideas, and then suddenly, oh yeah, and that idea, and that, and that, and that. So they're very, very fast, very creative as well. So they're very creative, they're very curious, they have a lot of ideas. Oh, I can do this. Oh, I would like to do that. Oh, the world could be so beautiful like this or that. They have a lot of interests, different interests. They don't have like one hobby, they have like 6 hobbies. They make friends really easily. They're very talkative. They talk a lot. They love to talk, but mostly maybe on more superficial. They don't really go into the depth sometimes. But and also friends. They have a lot of different friends everywhere, but maybe not like, and some good friends, of course, but not really like just one group of people. But if they get like an imbalance, they can get prone to anxiety, worrying, they can get introvert, they can have panic attacks, and they can get nervous, because the nervous system is a Vata organ, like I said before. So you probably already think about some people you know mentally. Then you have Pitta constitution. So Pitta people, like a cat, they are very, they have a good muscle tone. They're very athletically built. They are averagely built, so not too thin, not too big, not too small. They're average, but they have a good muscle tone and athletic. Their skin is warm, oily, and soft, like fire, like Pitta. Pitta is warm, a little bit oily, and soft. It becomes red quite easily because of the heat. It becomes red, and they're prone to acne. So they can get some pimples here and there also because of the cooking. They can also be prone to baldness, gray hair, because it just burns the Pitta will just burn the hair away. Also yellow teeth. Yellow, any kind of yellowness is a sign of Pitta as well in the body. So yellow teeth can be also a sign of a Pitta person. And the metabolism then, how is their metabolism? Their metabolism is very sharp and fast. So they have sharp metabolism, they can digest a heavy meal quite easily, and they will get hungry after a few hours again. It's very fast. They can eat a large meal, and then after a few hours, they're hungry again, and they can have a big meal. They really need their meals, and they cannot go without a meal. They can get hungry even after if they don't have their meals. They will actually burn themselves, and it's also not healthy for these people to not eat, because then actually they will just, their digestive juices and digestive enzymes and virus that is as high is very high. So if they don't eat, they don't cool down that fire, they will actually can burn themselves. Also mentally, this hungry is actually a sign of burning yourself. And then the mind, how is the mind? The mind is like very passionate because of all these hormones, all these enzymes, all these hormones. They're very passionate. They're very intense. They have intense emotions as well. They're extrovert people. They're very motivated, very ambitious, and they like to have a goal, like a cat. I see the mouse, I'm going to get that mouse, and I'm not going to do anything else unless I have that mouse. That's very Pitta. They will also like for example, a checklist, like, okay, I want to do this and this and this. I'm going to do it like this and this and this. There's a very Pitta mind. They're very intellect. They have a lot of intellect because Pitta is like the metabolism, but also the mental metabolism, the mental transformation. So they're very sharp minds as well. They're very focused, and they go into depth. They're not like a Vata person. They're not going to just do chit chat if they have a chat. They really like deep conversations and meaningful conversations. If they get an imbalance, you can have some irritation, some frustration, anger, even jealousy. These are very fiery emotions, and they can be there when there's too much Pitta. Or in these people, they naturally have it a little bit more. So Kapha constitutions then. Kapha, water and earth. So these people, like, I would say like a cow or an elephant. It's not a nice comparison, but just they have a little bit more body mass. They have their body is, it's not that they are obese or they're just overweight, not at all. They mostly, like, their body is well formed, is can be like very, they have strong healthy tissues. The tissue, they actually have the best tissues of all the other two, better than Vata and Kapha, because their tissues are well formed. There's a lot of there's a lot of growth and repair in them, and the tissues are very well formed, and they can also be very very beautiful, beautifully built. Like, for example, thick hair, white eyes, like white teeth, beautiful pale skin, no wrinkles, so they have a little bit bigger bones. They're a little bit more bigger in general, a bit more robust, not fat, but more really like the bones. And then they can be a bit more large as well. So their skin will be oily, will be cold as well to touch. A kind of a thick skin, a pale skin with not a lot of wrinkles, like very smooth. Moist skin, thick long hair. So they as well, they have actually not like a Vata person, which has like this thin brittle hair. They actually have like voluminous, luxurious hair. So they have also mostly like very calm eyes. A Vata person has very active eyes. They will also always like look around everywhere. A Pitta person has mostly like very intense eyes. If you look in a Pitta person's eyes, you just see the fire, you just see the passions. Like, whoa, it does something with you. When there's very like a Pitta person looking in your eyes, like oof. And then a Kapha person, they have very calm eyes, and you just like fall in love with these eyes, you know. They're very gentle, like a cow's eyes. So white teeth, white eyes, and the metabolism is also a bit slower. Not like a Pitta person, they cannot eat like 3 big meals a day and still be hungry. No, they mostly will eat like 1 or 2 meals a day, and maybe that's even enough. I mean, you can have like a dinner later, but mostly they like not very, very hungry. The metabolism is quite steady, so they will also, I mean, they will also have to go to the toilet regularly. So it's not like a Vata, which is constipated, but they're very like rhythmic, but it's more slow. It doesn't move as quickly. And then their mind is calm. It's difficult to anger. They're quite easygoing. They're stable. They like their routine. They like traditions. And they actually enjoy repetitive tasks, like a job with things that they just do repetitively. That's can be something that they would like. If they get into disbalance, if there will be too much kapha, they will become more heavy in the body, but also in the mind. They will be prone to more depression, lack of motivation, and over attachment as well. You know, cohesion, water element is cohesion. So too much attachment can be there as well. So that was about Vata Pitta Kapha. And so now we are going to the next principle. I'm going to explain it quite quickly because I already explained quite a lot. Agni. Agni is actually the metabolism or our digestive fire. And you can say the fire in our digestive system, like with all the enzymes and everything, but it's not only that. It's also all the metabolism in all our tissues. Like I said, every cell has its metabolism. There's like this, I don't know how you call it in English, mitochondria, which are actually our little energy, little stoves and little energy producers in our cell, and every little cell has it. So it's actually our metabolism in general. But we have different tissues, different types of tissues in our body. So we have different types of metabolism, different types of agnis. And one of the main ones and easiest to control is our digestive fire. But then you also have, for example, your blood metabolism, your fat metabolism. For example, people who are obese, they have not a very good fat metabolism. They don't metabolize their fats very easily. So that's why they get accumulation of fat. Then you have also your bone metabolism, your nervous system metabolism, all these metabolisms, there can be something as well wrong with them. They can just get into disbalance. And actually like I said, the main metabolism is our digestive fire, because this one is the easiest to maintain and to heal and to balance. We can control this one the easiest, because how are you going to control or rebalance your bone metabolism? It's something like, how are you going to do that? So very easy is to just, very easy. It is easier to maintain and to balance your digestive metabolism. And then all the other metabolisms, all the other agnis depend on this one, actually. So it's also your mental processing. Like I said, the body and mind, and also your metabolism, your mental processing. Like, for example, that's why Pitta, which has more fire elements, they have a sharp intellect, because they have a lot of mental Agni, mental fire. So you can actually say, we also say like, you are what you eat, but actually in Ayurveda, you say more, you are what you digest, because you don't always digest everything. You can eat as much as you want, but you're not always digesting everything. You don't always have control over that, what you are actually digesting. And that's where the toxins come in. So in Ayurveda, toxins is actually called as ama. And ama, well, toxins can come from external ways, like, for example, from the air we breathe, from intoxicated water, from food, from our environment, we can be toxic, bacteria, viruses. But actually, most of the time in Ayurveda, we talk about metabolic toxins. And these, like I said, are things that we didn't digest well. It's like, actually, it is undigested food. And this undigested food, how can you see it? You can see it like our metabolism or our digestive fire, really like as a fire. If you put wood on that fire, on a real fire, and then it burns, and then afterwards you get ash. And if that ash is well burned, if the fire has burned the wood well, then afterwards you will have very thin, fine ashes. And these thin ashes are easy to absorb for the body. I mean, it's not real ash, it's just an example, okay? But then this very thin ash is easy to absorb in our bodies. You can see our bodies as actually with a lot of, like a porous system with a lot of channels. So everything is moving through channels in our bodies. Or blood or lymph, like even in the smallest cell, there's a lot of little channels where everything is just moving around. And if the ash is very thin and very small and thin, then it will pass through these channels quite easily. But if your fire didn't burn the wood properly, then sometimes you've seen after a campfire, that there's still some logs, still some undigested wood left. And that's the same as with our food. So there can be some undigested particles in our food that has been absorbed in the gut and are traveling around in our blood system in all these little channels. And then they actually clog the system. They actually block it. And then you have blockages of channels. And then if you have a blockage of these channels, that actually means that there's some parts of your body that don't get fed well, that parts of that don't get the right nutritions. But also you can have these tissues they cannot release their toxins well anymore. So it actually is it's a bit of a problem. It ends up as a problem. And then you can, of course, you can take care of your fire, but more easily is even to take care of your food, to have the right food, to eat the right food. So, for example, if you would put wet food, a lot of wet food, like wet wood on the fire, it will not absorb very well. It will not burn very well, and then you will end up with undigested lumps of wood actually in the system, as you could say. So these undigested food particles, they make our blood heavy, and as I said, they can block the channels and they can clog up the system. So they make the blood heavy, but they also make ourselves heavy. You might have felt it when you just feel heavy. It means that there's just like accumulation of toxins in the body. And then these undigested food can also accumulate in our bodies. Like I said before, like with this rheumatoid arthritis, for example, you have in a weak spot, for example, a place where you had already some arthrosis or that you moved already a lot, and then all these toxins that move around, they will just like stick there because that's like your weak spot. And then they accumulate there. And then, okay, problems start, then the body will attack it with inflammation to try to cook it. And then you get autoimmune diseases. And that's actually the whole circle of a lot of diseases, actually. And how can we treat this ama? Well, first of all, through with our Agni, with our to make our Agni or our digestive fire or our fire or our metabolism in a good state. So the Agni, the metabolism, plays a very important role in the amount of ama in the body. So always, that's why in Ayurveda, we always look at our digestive fire. We take a lot of care of our digestive fire, our digestive system, how food is digested. That's why we also look in different body types, how their metabolism is. Is a Vata person, okay, they need to eat more, a little bit, they have a irregular body type, they need to eat more, maybe like smaller amounts during the whole day. Pitta people really needs it's 3 meals, bigger meals. Kapha people can maybe go with 2 like intermediate meals a day. So to really take care of your digestive fire, because there is where all the health happens, but it's also where all the problems actually start. So we've come to an end. I hope this was interesting for you. Thank you very much for listening. And if you would have any questions, you are always welcome to ask me, to contact me. If you would want to know more about Ayurveda, or more specifically, if you struggle with something, some health problems, or yeah, you know somebody who is struggling with, and this person is open for some diet, lifestyle changes, maybe some herbal medicines even, or some treatments, more than welcome to contact me. Okay, thank you.